you know what? Where does hair go? Where does metal go? What are we doing about the hairdressing industry, and how are we solving the problem of our waste and our purpose of what it needs to be part of this sustainability future? So not just about waste, but the community, localism. How do we drive profits within sustainability? How do we basically make it business as usual? That was really a thought process of mine, because we all want to have a better planet, but people just need it to work for their business. And that's something that I came with, that mindset. So I brought Evelina back to Australia, and before you know it, we started writing a business plan about how to basically build this kind of new world of what it means to be sustainable inside a hair salon. And people think it happened overnight, us building sustainable salons. It took many years of convince. I still remember when we first started, people just laughed at us. They're like, Paul, nobody cares about recycling. Nobody cares about, trying to save the planet, because this is 2006, right?
Yeah.
Most people back then, I always say, you're only a few years into having your first email address.
Yeah.
So it was a different time.
20 years ago, nearly, just about. Yeah. And welcome to the show. It's so much more than hair. I am so excited to have Paul Frasca, who is the founder, the creator, the genius behind Australia's sustainable salons. Welcome to the show, Paul. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, no problem at all.
Yeah, so like we said just in the background there, I could probably introduce you and talk about you myself. Because
Please do. I always love to hear how people see what we do.
This is your flaw. So, but I do love so much what you do, and I love.
Thanks.
I've followed you pretty much, since the beginning. But anyway, this is for you to share. So, how did it all begin, Paul?
Well, which part I always say, because look, when I've got kind of a few phases along my career at the moment, but to honestly go back to a little bit of like even before sustainable salons, like I'm a hairdresser.
Yes.
I left school at 14. I was dyslexic in school. Wasn't a very good student, you could say, because when you're back then, and I'm going back to the early 90s there, where teachers didn't even know much about dyslexia. They kind of just treated you as like a special kid, and you went into all the general classes. And I was wondering, geez, am I going to go anywhere with my life? And thank God I found hairdressing. I was very, very good at shaving my friends' heads. I was a little skater kid, and I was good at shaving heads and doing undercuts. And Mum was like, maybe you should be a hairdresser. And I was like, at 11, I was already in my first hair salon, doing Thursday nights and Saturdays and washing hair. And actually, I still remember I worked on the barbers section of the salon, because back then you kind of had these mixed salons where you had the barber side and the women's side. And I still remember they gave me a brush, and they put it in my back pocket. And they said, every time a man stands up, you brush his shoulders. And that was my job for the first, I think, 6 months. But I tell you what, did it teach me all about about the industry, meeting people, building up courage, and really becoming quite fearless at a young age. Because I was like, I'm in the working world actually already at 11. By the time I got to 14, I was actually pretty good at doing hairdressing in general. My bosses had already showed me how to do tints, semis, streaks, because foiling was still a new thing then, so everyone was streaking. And by the time I started my apprenticeship, I was already pretty equipped. I remember the teacher saying to me at TAFE, go, you do better flat tops than me. Do you mind teaching the class? And I was like, no problem.
That's great. Where, Paul, where was that?
I was at Meadowbank TAFE in New South Wales. So Meadowbank was my school. I loved it. Had a really good time there. I think as the only straight guy and 15 girls, I felt like I was living the dream. I'm like, wow, have I entered this unique industry where, I get to meet all these girls?
Well, I have heard a few, straight male hairdressers say how good the industry is to them.
Yeah, we're very lucky.
Yeah, that's fabulous. So then, what then after that?
Oh, look, funny enough, I didn't get straight into sustainability yet. At about the age of 18, I was invited to go on a trip to Italy to go do, it was like a mini World Cup of hairdressing, you could say. I really got to open my eyes to some international hairdressing. And I tell you what really caught my eye, first off, was when I worked in Italy, I saw women getting their hair blow dried on a weekly basis. And I thought, wow, look at this. Like, the clients are coming so regularly, not like back in Australia where they're coming every 4 to 6 weeks. So my mind naturally goes into business models and how to build business models. And I quickly thought, how do I apply this in Italy back in Australia? So to fast forward a bit, I was 19 years old, bought my first hair salon, and I made it a membership-based hair salon where clients could actually pay a monthly fee for unlimited service. That became quite a big success for 2 years. We had about 300 members, and we closed the door at 300 members. Wow. And basically, it was really about unlimited vanity, really just allowing a client to come in, not think about money, but to think about the full service of what they want. And it was a huge success. So to fast forward a little bit more, it ended up taking me all the way to the Netherlands. Where I ended up selling the business off. I started working in the Netherlands. I ended up staying there for nearly 8 years. Amsterdam could do that to anybody. It's a beautiful city. But it's where I met my... Yeah, spectacular.
Recommended by you, actually.
Oh, look, I always say to someone, if you want to see a romantic city, it's just so beautiful, Amsterdam. Yeah. But it's where I met my partner, Evelina. And Evelina comes with this whole fashion sustainability background. And I was just fascinated by what she's doing in sustainability for the fashion industry. And I thought, you know what? Where does hair go? Where does metal go? What are we doing about the hairdressing industry, and how are we solving the problem of our waste and our purpose of what it needs to be part of this sustainability future? So not just about waste, but the community, localism. How do we drive profits within sustainability? How do we basically make it business as usual? That was really a thought process of mine, because we all want to have a better planet, but people just need it to work for their business. And that's something that I came with, that mindset. So I brought Evelina back to Australia, and before you know it, we started writing a business plan about how to basically build this kind of new world of what it means to be sustainable inside a hair salon. And people think it happened overnight, us building sustainable salons. It took many years. Many years of I still remember when we first started, people just laughed at us. They're like, Paul, nobody cares about recycling. Nobody cares about, trying to save the planet, because this is 2006, right?
Yeah.
Most people back then, I always say, you're only a few years into having your first email address.
Yeah.
So it was a different time.
20 years ago, nearly, just about. Yeah.
It was a different world. So it's how it all kind of came together.
Fabulous. Yeah. So, I think we would have, you would have been around a little bit before we started talking, of course. But, we, I think we chatted like back in 2000 or maybe 15 or 16 or something about this. And, and then again later on. So it's amazing to see how it's grown.
We always had faith that I think someone asked me once, like, well, if it wasn't working in those first few years, how did you keep going? And I said to someone, well, back then, if I wasn't a green person, right? I always say to people, I was not coming from this green upbringing where I was hugging trees and trying to save the world. No, nothing like that. I felt like when we had built this, I thought, well, if I care about this, I'm like that next generation coming into hairdressing, it just feels right to take care of the planet. It just feels right to care. I thought, geez, there must be others out there that also feel this. They might not be totally green people, but they're just caring people. And thank God, because really by the time we got to about 2000 and I think 10, 11, people were starting to say out loud, oh, like, that matters to me. taking care of our planet does matter to me. I'm not maybe a green person. I love doing business or this or that, but this just feels right. And I think what's happened is we've started to see a whole generation of people, especially in my age group now, where they've just like, they just want to be they want to be on the right side of history.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's it. It's just, and we have patience in saying, you know what, I think they're going to finally catch up, because my generation wasn't starting to, they were just starting to buy salons at that time.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like that 30-year-old starting to figure out, you know what, I'm going to take a leap of faith and buy my first hair salon. And thank God, because as they started buying salons, we started collating more members, more people, bigger community, and then really it starts to snowball from there. Yeah. And you're like, okay, confidence comes into the market.
Absolutely. And it's quite like, I know when I talk to my students about it, they get quite amazed. You know, I give them the foil example of how much foil we use, and it's probably more now, is it? Like,
oh, it's crazy. Oh, look, the number. It's technically based on on how many hairdressers we have in the industry. And we actually only rise by around about 1 or 2% each year. So it doesn't increase a lot. About 1.1 to 1.2 million kilos of foil is used each year. Thank God now of our program, because now we recycle a good chunk of that now goes through our program where we actually recycle it. But prior to us, no, that would have just gone to landfill.
Yeah, for sure. And I use the Sydney Westfield Tower as the example. So the two car stacks of cars from bottom to top is how much foil we use in a year.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Incredible. It's crazy. Yeah. And yeah, so it does excite when the students kind of know, and we're a sustainable salon here, and we recycle at the school. So, and they're proud to be a part of that. And then the hair booms. Tell us about that.
Look, the hair, when we first had to tackle, because when we built sustainable salons, we had to look at all the different waste streams, and actually there was not a lot of solutions to any of them, because just to put this into context, so like aluminium just went to landfill, like color tubes, that's aluminium. Most of the chemicals just went down the drain. Most of all the plastics would just end up, if not all of them, would have ended up in landfill. But hair was this other material. Like, okay, well, what is it, and how are we going to do something with it? Like it felt organic, which it is. Hair is very organic. And we thought, well, you know what, if we study hair and first find out what it is, then we can start to look at what its purpose is, what it's good for. So when we started studying hair, we started realizing some very fascinating things, like hair's 50% carbon. It's full of nutrients. It's full of proteins, keratin, all these unique organic ingredients. So we thought, this is fascinating. But then we thought, but what's something we could get off the ground fast that could really wake people up to actually using hair today versus trying to go through a big scientific research, and without breaking down the hair and getting into all that nitty gritty about carbon and nutrients. We thought, well, hair's a great absorbent. It can act like a sponge. We in our research we found that hair can hold up to 8 times its weight in liquid. And one of the most unique liquids that works with hair, or you could say that hair is attracted to, is oil. We know this because we use shampoo to get off the oil. So we thought, well, does oil stick to hair? And it sticks really well. And when I say this, so one of our hair booms, let's say it's 1 meter long, it can soak up to 4 liters of crude oil. Once it's got oil on there, it can actually sit in the ocean actually for weeks, months, and the oil will never come off the hair cuticle. It is literally glued to the hair, unless you use a solvent like a shampoo to release it. So it's very fascinating. So we thought, you know what? If hair's a great absorbent, why aren't we not thinking about hair booms and soaking up oil spills? And that really set us off on a journey to create that boom, get it scientifically verified at UTS in Sydney. So we went through a whole nearly 1.5 year research and a thesis to get that done. And today, now we have hair booms and we have councils buying them. We deploy them to oil spills. And it's just been this great journey of just the first step of how we can use hair as a resource of the future.
Love it. Absolutely. You make me proud to be what I've researched. Yeah, because it makes you proud to know that we're contributing in such a powerful way. Really, it's you're a powerful
it's
human.
our waste, right? And it excites us. I don't know. As a hairdresser, I'm like, gosh, I would just love to tell this story while I'm cutting hair. Like,
Yeah.
you know, and I thought if we're going to do, if I like this, I'm assuming hairdressers like yourself, right? But like, actually, this is our gig. This is our game. We should be the ones solving the hair problem.
Yeah, and it just proves it is so much more than hair, isn't it? It's so much more, because it's like just, you know, out of that creativity came this the birth of this amazing business, or business and concept and everything, and you just asking the how do we do this, how do we do that? It's just that's how it's. Yeah.
And the most I like to always say to the next gen or anyone who's wanting to go down the journey of trying to be part of something unique is get inquisitive. You know, really all it is, I've got no degrees from university. I've got none of this. You don't need any of that to go and build an awesome business. What you do need is to have a mindset that's always inquisitive, to ask the questions and the right questions, and never take no as an answer. If you really believe in something, you will find a pathway, and there's always answers to most of these solutions. And it's really not rocket science when it comes to waste. When I looked into this, I'm like, we're just above ground miners, really. Yeah. What are we? You know, miners dig underground. We just collect what's above ground. And if you can collect it as a single source, well, you've got enough of one material to probably do something with it. Yeah. Because that's the real problem when you think about it. The big problem we have with the yellow bin is we just put everything in one bin and hope for the best. I'm like, what a messy way to recycle. It has to be separated at the source. Otherwise, you'll never recycle hair. You'll never recycle most plastics.
Well, just won't. I know when I started teaching on my own, and I rang our local council and I said, and I knew what you were doing, and I just said, or I emailed them, what do you do with the paper? What do you do with the glass? What do you do with the plastic? And they couldn't answer me.
They don't know, because they don't know.
No. So how did you, so that obviously that set you on a path of discovery again. So like going and finding what to do, how you can recycle. How'd you go about that? So.
Oh, look, you know, it was actually quite funny. I still remember some of our first journeys into this space because, again, we were very green, you know, right? We didn't know anything about anything. I'm from hairdressing. Evelina was from fashion. She knew a lot about sustainability, but we never dived into industries and figured them out. And I still remember when we first had to dive into many of the recyclers to understand, okay, why is foil not getting recycled? Like just doing some very basic research, aluminium's infinitely recyclable. So why wouldn't a recycler take it? And not only that, it has a value per kilo, like it's a commodity. Yeah. And I'm like, you still don't take it. And you know what I found out along my journey is I'm like, wait a second, well, who provides the yellow bin? And most people would say, oh, the council? And I'd say, no, they have a subcontractor that they work with, you know, like a big company like Viola or Cleanaway or one of these big companies that contract out to go collect it. So they're the ones who actually got the trucks out there, you know. And then you realise, wait a second, did we ask the landfill guys to give us recycling? Yeah. And I'm like, we did. And I'm like, how did we? You know, when you think about that, you're like, well, I like to take a very Silicon Valley approach to most things. Is when you look at Silicon Valley, most of the companies built there don't come from any of these industries. The people who built Uber built it out of frustration that they couldn't get a taxi. The people that built Airbnb built it out of the frustration they couldn't get an apartment. Yeah. So they're starting from a very different position. They're not coming back from a legacy company trying to change the Vatican, you could say. They're actually coming from a problem-solving attitude. And I see that was the problem. The waste industry has really just been very good at digging holes, putting it in holes, and putting some dirt on top of it, right? Yeah. And then you ask these guys, okay, now save the planet. It's like, what a silly thing to do. Like that was probably not the right place to go and ask. You probably should have incubated lots of young, fresh minds to say, okay, how do we solve this future nut, which is recycling? And honestly, people like me and a few others could easily have solved this. Like very little money would have been spent, and all we would have had to do is reinvent how we collect it. Yeah. You know, because giving someone just a yellow bin and hoping for the best has been a dead model, yet it has never changed. And the government today still rely on it as their way of recycling. So without getting on too much of a tangent, it's kind of hilarious when you think about it.
Oh.
Small business has never been offered a good recycling service.
No, never. And neither have households. So
there's a whole nother problem there. Households, they got the same bin. So I'm like, wait, the same bin for households or the same bin for small business? You know, just to even laugh about that for a second, the yellow bin was actually designed for residential. When you give it to a small business, most small businesses are like hairdressing are like, wait a second, 85% of what we do in this small business can't even go in that bin.
That's right.
And then you go to a cafe, it's the same problem. You go to a shoe repairer, same problem. You go to the beauty salon, same problem. And I'm like, so small business have been given no real great product.
No, not at all. Not at all. And like, I actually sympathise with you guys, because I knew how much waste we had becoming a sustainable salon. And I sort of, I'm so grateful to have you guys on board because, I would be running up the street, putting our cardboard or cutting it up into small pieces to get it into the bin and standing in the bin to squash.
Oh yeah,
but anyway,
it's a fascinating space, the recycling. But where I get truly inspired is actually what can you do with this material? Yeah, that's what really gets me going. Because I'm like, these are just fascinating materials that easily can have a second, third, or a circular life.
So where is life after the cardboard and after the plastic?
Oh, there's so much. I could talk for hours in this space, but I'll talk about some of our most exciting things we're doing at the moment, I guess, is let's go with plastics for a second because everyone's always so concerned about plastics. What's fascinating about the hairdressing industry is we have some pretty good plastics. What I mean by that are our shampoo bottles, peroxide bottles, all those big bottles, they're mostly what they call a HDPE or a PP plastic, which is a good hard plastic. So we don't use a lot of soft plastic in our industry, thank God. It makes up only less than maybe 1% of our whole industry, soft plastic. So it's mainly a hard plastic, and hard plastic are really easier to recycle. The complicated part we deal with is the contamination of those bottles because they have lots of shampoo or some goo left in them, and they have a very little hole at the top, so very hard to get that goo out. So these are some of the things. But what we have got very good at is actually how to transform those plastics into product ranges now that can get resold back in the salon or other environments. So for the last probably 6 years, we've just been working and chipping away at 1 product, 2 product, 3 product. Today, we now have about 10 product ranges, everything from we make sunglasses, we've got toasters, dog leashes, combs, all these product lines that now get made from the plastic. And the best part about that, it all happens locally. Yeah. It's not coming from China. It's not coming from overseas. It's employing local people. It's recycling it locally, and it's basically innovating. We're starting to innovate again. This is a really exciting thing because now that we've solved the problem of collecting the material, centralizing it, getting it all washed, clean, processed, now it's just a mold. I say to someone, now all you have to say to us is, what do you want to make? It's just a mold. Do you want to make, cups, bowls, this, that? It's really quite easy now because the hard part is mining it, collecting it and bringing it back. I tell everyone it's basically, if you asked us what we are, we're a reverse logistics company. Yeah. That's really what we are. And that's not easy.
And it also, but it actually makes you realise how much cardboard and plastic the companies actually use too. And makes you wonder, is there a way to actually reduce that's coming into the salon that then, that then we impart onto you. But that's
I would say everyone's got a different opinion on who's the problem here. Is the product company or is it us? Yeah. And I've always come back to the fact that you can't blame a company. You blame yourself. You bought it. Yeah. And you say, but they made it. And I say, but if you don't buy it, they don't make it. Trust me. You have, as humans on the planet, we have a choice. Every time you go and vote with your dollar or purchase something, think about what you're buying. We've got to stop being consumable junkies and just buying everything at the cheapest rates. Buy quality, buy things that actually aren't going to fade, clothes after one wash. Actually start to think about the material you're purchasing, and also think about where it's made and why it's made that way. And you might spend a little bit more, but it adds so much more value back into the community by actually buying from that shop, not that shop. And once you start to have this type of mindset, our whole communities can change. So I always say to someone, it always comes back to the consumer. So think about what you buy. And if you love a brand and that you're not feeling like you're seeing your values in that brand, like there's too much packaging or it's this, let them know. You'd be surprised how quickly your voice goes up the chain. And I always say, like, just having every time you buy something, just say, hey guys, I really wasn't happy how it was packed like this or sent like that. The more they hear that, the more they change, and the more they see you coming away from their product because of those reasons, you'll see them change faster than the speed of light. Because they rely on you to make that purchase. So it's always going to come back to the customer. Companies are just delivering what you want.
Correct.
Pretty much. So it's a reflection of us.
You're right.
Cheap and nasty. Well, look at the last 20 years. We all, if you go back pre the 90s, like lots of things were made here. They were made with quality. They were manufactured. There was but then we just demanded cheap. We wanted it cheaper, because it made us feel richer, having more stuff. But I think that's changed now after COVID. I think a lot of people have woken up and said, you know what? I want to bring back localism.
Yeah, true.
I want my community to be empowered again. I want to see jobs again. I want to see my local fruit shop stay there. I want to see the butcher stay there. I want to see the hair salon that cares. That matters to me. And what an exciting time.
Yeah, and I think we saw more of that even at Christmas time. A lot of local traders were saying, that they were getting patronised more so, which was really good. So we are changing, which is really positive.
It's what comes out of a COVID sometimes. I've heard this globally, by the way, and there's no disrespect to countries like China or anything like this. I'm just saying that I think everyone's got to the point where it's just like, I just want to know my community is also doing okay. It's okay to just import everything, but at some point you're like, where are we going with this? And can we think a little bit better and a bit smarter? And especially when it comes to waste materials, I'm like, guys, they really don't need to be waste. These are future resources, and our kids and our kids after that, again, the grandchildren, they need these resources to make their products. If we just deplete them and just waste them, like literally I said to someone, Australia throws away 1 million kilos of foil each year. Europe, 78 million kilos. America, 45 million kilos. I'm like, guys, that is a lot of metal that we just dump that we could actually just have in circularity going around and round for 1,000 years just by recycling it. And you save 95% of the energy in manufacturing. I'm like, it's a no-brainer to recycle it. And I don't know if you know, one of the key strategies we did at Sustainable Salons to demonstrate that was we started to show the value of aluminium. So when we collected it, we said for every kilo we recycle, we're going to donate 100% of those proceeds to Oz Harvest and Kiwi Harvest through our program. And people really got behind that. They were like, oh, I get it. There's actually value in aluminium. I'm like, and we can put it back into the community. So let's show how circularity can work, but also the value of these materials.
Fabulous. And that's where, that's another thing I really love about what Sustainable Salons do. It is back in the community. And like you were saying about the recyclables being collected in your local area, I did hear you say a couple of years ago that, each state has their own depots and they employ, so every state is actually, the money is staying in that state as well. In
the communities, That's localism at its best, because when you build something like this, we could easily centralise it in Sydney or Melbourne and all the riches go to them. But I'm like, no, how does that benefit people in Brisbane? How does it benefit someone in Perth? It doesn't need to be built that way, and it can actually still be built in a way where you don't have to lose profits, because you just got to think and work that little bit harder to put back into the community those pillars. And that's all it is. It's like, okay, it's actually more cost effective, I could even say. When we've broken the numbers down over the years, it saves us more money by investing in that community over time, because it's much cheaper to have logistics working within only 5 kilometers versus sending it 1,000 kilometers. But that only comes with big thinking. Most people love to just say, you know what, I just want to do it all from my home. I don't want to set up little sites in Brisbane and this and that. It's all too hard.
Yeah.
And I think, look, I get it, but I think we should challenge ourselves because you can do it. And the best analogy I give here is globalism is dead. Localism is God. And it doesn't mean you can't be a global company. It's just how do you bring it to a local level?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And just another thing that I want to chat to you about is the wigs that you're making, which is another, that's another thing that's really heartwarming for us to be able to contribute to that side of the industry, because wigs were becoming super expensive, weren't they? Due to
very
So how do we help it?
Yeah. Look, the wig. Sorry, I didn't hear your question there.
If you can just chat about like how Sustainable Salons has actually helped out the wig manufacturing.
Yeah. Look, when we started Sustainable Salons, wigs were not on our radar. It wasn't looked at as a waste material, but within just a very short period, in the first few months, we started seeing that there was this big gap. And I remember talking to the guys at Variety at the time, and they were collecting ponytails for alopecia. They were probably the only ponytail collector in the country at the time. And they would basically try to educate the community why you needed good hair to come through for medical wigs. And I said to the guys, how are you going? They said, look, funding's going well, but the hair's not going well. And I said, what do you mean? So he says, it's really hard for us to talk to hairdressers because we don't have a budget to go and, have reps and people walking into salons and, like what we do. They said, look, we're just trying to do it through marketing to wake people up. And I said, wake them up to what? I said, I'm a hairdresser. What's the problem? And they said, well, alopecia in Australia needs about 4,000 ponytails a year just to supply children with alopecia. And I said, 4,000 ponytails. So how many are you getting right now? They said, a couple of hundred every year, good ones, quality ones. And I said, so you're just really short. And I said, where does that other hair come from? They said, we have to buy it and import it. And the wig makers will spend thousands to import all that hair. And I said, all right, well, I'm a hairdresser. Maybe we just need to educate hairdressers the problem and then they can be part of the solution. And that's really a long story short. And once you empower someone to like, hey, there's a problem. Next time you're about to cut that lady's hair, if she's got more than, back then it was 35 centimeters, I said, if she's got more than 35, could you just let her know that you're going to actually cut off some ponytails first, give her a certificate, that everyone loves a certificate, like a ponytail certificate, and just say thank you, but that hair's going to be now sent off for a child with alopecia. Now, honestly, you think anyone's going to say no to that? No. They're going to cry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, wait a second. I just came in to get a bob.
Do it now.
Right? Yeah, right. Yeah. I just came in to get a bob, and all of a sudden my hair's now going off to help a child in need. Yeah. Take my money. People are just like trying to get involved, and now you've got the World's Greatest Shave, Cancer Council, Variety, AAAF. There's so many ponytail organizations now raising money. Sustainable Salons processes all of that, just so you know. So we partner with all these major charities. We process all that hair. That makes up about 30% of the hair that we collect, and the other 70% comes from hair salons, where hairdressers are just spotting the hair. And you see it all over Instagram now, where everyone's cutting ponytails like crazy now. And honestly, I think this should be plugged into the curriculum. Yeah. Right? If I think about it from an education level, I'm like, guys, this is a really important thing that I think all hairdressers need to know. It's just by default that we're the people that cut the hair, and it's such an important resource that's needed for wig makers. Because when I tell people where hair actually comes from, if it's not coming from us locally, you nearly vomit. Yeah. It's disgusting. Women are getting their heads shaved off in India, literally in temples for $1, being told their hair's going off to these gods, while it's just flooding into the wig market and hair extension market. I'm just like, oh my God. Yeah. Like even I'm struggling to comprehend it. Guys, we need to stop this trade. This is blood. This is like blood hair, like blood diamonds. It's not right. They're not fairly paid. And to be honest, if I was a young child or even an adult in Australia wanting to have a wig, I would like to know it came locally. It's just local hair.
Yeah, and with the goodwill of and it does now, which is good. Yeah.
Oh, it's such it's still one of the warmest moments for Evelina and I when we look back on our legacy of what we've achieved. We're like, wow, we actually really solved this problem through our network. And now we supply pretty much all the hair for medical wigs across Australia and New Zealand, and we can now export nearly hair, which we're just really proud about, because it's actually some of the best quality hair. As a hairdresser, you know this.
Yeah.
You know, European hair, uncoloured, is the cream of the crop.
Yeah. Yeah,
that's what everyone wants. Even Indians and Asians, they're all trying to get European hair.
Yeah,
and it's not an easy hair to get.
So how many ponytails would you get a year now?
The numbers are staggering. Well, we would probably collect in the 100,000 plus annually.
Fabulous. That is so phenomenal.
It's ramped up so much now. I know. I think in the first few years it just took time to get everyone educated. Now they're just flooding in.
Yeah.
But out of that, I would say only about 40 to 60% of that is what we call the good hair, the really good hair. We were getting lots of short hair under that, let's say 30 centimeters, 25 centimeters. There wasn't a big market for this, but that market is now changing. We have some new partners that we work with called like Hats for Hair, and these guys that are actually making products now where, so you got let's say you got cancer and you just want to pop out to get some milk. So you can get these like hats now that you kind of whip on. They got the hair down the side. It makes you look really good. You pop out and then you come back, you just whip your hat off. You know, you don't have to do the whole put the wig on and so forth. So there's these products coming, and they only need 20 centimeter hair. So we've got this whole market now for these shorter length hairs. So yeah, and that's really also because of us, because we've got to open up, because we've now got so much supply. There's now a reason for people to make new products, and we're starting to see that grow now, which is just awesome.
Yeah, that's just so exciting for you to sort of evolve like that. It's great. So
you're just getting the next generation to get excited. Like you guys teaching us, we get all the time students. I just heard one early this morning where he went into a barber and he asked the hairdresser, he said to the barber there, he's like, "Why are you guys not sustainable salons?" He said, "Sustainable salons? Oh, I just learnt that at TAFE." And he's like, "They're an amazing company, and gosh, barbers should be doing a lot more." And now, but it's a funny thing how it evolves through education. Once they study it, then they feel like, "Oh, you know what? I know this. I can relate to this now." Yeah.
And before we run out of time, and pooches too. Do you still do?
Oh yeah, that was the dog grooming industry. They're the best. Love them to death. Honestly. We're growing really rapidly in this space. And what's funny about the dog grooming industry is we never wanted to be in this space. They kind of came to us and were angry that they couldn't be in our space. And I was like, in the beginning, like, "Guys, look, we don't deal with pooches, this and that." And they're like, "What's the difference?" And I'm like, "I don't know, a dog and a human." But when you actually go into the back of their salons or groomers, they got blow dryers, clippers, shampoo. I'm like, "You are a hair salon. There is no difference." I'm like, and then we started servicing 1 and 2 and 10, 100, and now it's like in the hundreds, and you're like, "Oh my God, this is a booming industry." Actually, I don't know if you know now, people pay nearly twice as much for their dog to get groomed than themselves.
I do know. I do know because and you know, the thing is, I tried cutting my own dog's hair and it's so much worth the money anyway.
All right, it's hard. Have you ever seen in those rooms, they have to, they put them on a table, then they kind of put these like 2 clips on them, and then the dog, I'm like, "Oh, this is so smart." Like, it's a lot of effort to keep a pooch still.
It's a big job.
Yeah.
Okay, well, before we wind up, I've just got a couple of just crazy questions to ask you. So,
go for it.
Most memorable moment in your career?
The most memorable moment in my career, that's a interesting question. I think it would have to go when Evelina and I did our road trip and we studied hair salons. I'll never forget it. It was such a bizarre experience, just walking into salons and saying, "Can we have your waist for a week?"
Oh, wow.
And I'll never forget it. Just like the look on their faces, like, "Who are you? What type of weirdo are you?" And I'm like, "Don't worry, we're just trying to study the waist." That's probably my most memorable moment.
That's good. But it has to start somewhere, doesn't it? And you know, like you said, from the grassroots up, you know, it's how it goes, how it happens, isn't it?
Yeah.
So who cuts Paul's hair?
There's only one person that cuts my hair. That's me.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, I do. I cut my hair. Evelina laughs all the time, but no one. Look, curly hair is another thing, right? And even every boss, even the best hair. I used to work for some amazing hairdressers. They really sucked at cutting curly hair, and because most people with curly hair, we just want it rough and messy. You
Yeah.
know, we're not looking to look like we've got a perm. It's not the '80s. You know, we're trying to make it look the opposite of a perm. But yeah, so I just got really. I honestly, it takes me about 30 seconds to cut my hair.
Yeah. Oh, it's good.
And I do it every probably 4 weeks, little snip, snip here, done.
Yeah.
And that's it. It doesn't always come out great.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure it settles after a week or so.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And you know what the real trick for my hair is? I actually don't wash it.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, because I surf. So I just use the ocean water. And honestly,
Yeah.
it's the
Sea
best thing
salt.
for curls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, any advice for young people coming into the industry?
Yeah, always. The advice I give is what my boss once taught me. He says, you must do what the client can't do. That's what makes you special.
Mm-hmm.
Best advice I ever got given. And he this was, and to put context into this is when the straightening irons were just starting to come into the space, and everyone got excited and we're all jumping at them and all this. And he says, get rid of that thing. And I
Oh,
said, Italian. I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, what makes us special is blow drying and servicing and keeping the client knowing that we do something they can't do. But if
yes.
they start being able to do what you do, well, what are you good for?
Yeah.
And it was the best advice. And it took me all around the world actually doing. So I really studied a lot of classical hairdressing, and it took me all around the world. And it's a type of hairdressing that, can't be replicated at home, and they always need to come to you. So it made you valuable.
Well, my students will say that that's what I tell them all the time.
Oh, good.
Don't make it too easy for your client. You need to be special. You need to be able to give them something that they can't do at home.
That's it.
Yeah, so I totally agree with what you just said and your boss's advice as well.
It worked.
Yeah. So how can people find you, Paul?
Easy. We're sustainablesalons.org. That's where we've got all of our information, videos, and content. And honestly, today LinkedIn. Usually, lots of people reach out to me through LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And Instagram. I would say I'm probably more on LinkedIn than I am Instagram. But yeah, that's my world.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've got 150,000 other questions that I can ask you. So it'd be great to speak again, maybe in a couple of months, or not months, maybe 12 months again, and just see how, what's evolved further. But thank you so much. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.